The origin and curiosities of the legend of the Minotaur. The Minotaur was one of the most famous and horrific monsters in ancient Greek mythology, usually depicted with the body of a man and the head of a bull. Born from the unnatural union of Pasiphae and the Bull of Crete. The Minotaur is a character from Greek mythology whose most traditional representation among the ancient Greeks was a creature with the head of a bull on the body of a man. The Roman author Ovid described him simply as part man and part bull. He lived in the center of a labyrinth, an elaborate construction erected for King Minos of Crete, and designed by the architect Daedalus and his son, Icarus specifically to house a creature. The historic site of Knossos, with more than 1,300 labyrinth-like compartments, has already been identified as the site of the Minotaur's labyrinth, although there is no evidence to confirm or deny such speculation. In the myth, the Minotaur later dies at the hands of the Athenian hero Theseus. Some modern mythologists see the Minotaur as a solar personification, Minoan adaptation of the Bull Moloch of the Phoenicians. The death of the Minotaur by Theseus, in this case, indicated the breaking of Athens' tributary relations with Minoan Crete. The term Minotaur comes from ancient Greek, etymologically composed of the name, Minos, and the noun, bull, and can be translated as, the Bull of Minos. In Crete, the Minotaur was known by his own name, Asterius, a name he shared with Minos' adopted father. Originally, Minotaur was only used as a proper name, referring to this mythical figure. The use of Minotaur as a common noun designating members of a fictional, generic race of anthropogenic bull-headed creatures emerged much later, in the fantasy fiction genre of the 20th century. The birth of the Minotaur. Born part man and part bull, the Minotaur was ultimately the result of Minos' arrogance, Poseidon's anger, and Pasiphae's lust. Poseidon and Minos. In Greek myths, the story of the Minotaur begins with the dispute between Minos, Rhadamanto, and Sarpedon for the throne of Crete after their father died. Minos assumed the throne after having his request granted by Poseidon, which caused his brothers gave up the throne to him. Poseidon had given a beautiful bull to Minos to sacrifice in honor of the god of the seas. Enchanted by becoming king of Crete, Minos decided to persecute his brothers, expelling them from Crete and choosing not to fulfill his promise to Poseidon, which angered the Greek god. Minos did not sacrifice the bull to Poseidon, killing another bull instead. The punishment Minos received was harsh, but versions of the myth are conflicting. One version says that Poseidon made Pasiphae, Minos' wife, fall in love with the bull. Others say that Poseidon convinced Aphrodite to make her fall in love with the bull. Another version says that Aphrodite herself took the initiative, because she felt disrespected by Pasiphae. What we do know is that King Minos' wife fell in love with the bull. Pasiphae asked Daedalus and Icarus, both artisans, to build a wooden cow, as real as possible, so that she could bond with the bull. Pasiphae used the wooden cow to trick the white bull given by Poseidon, hid inside it and had sex with the bull. The offspring of this cross was the monstrous Minotaur. Pasiphae took care of him during his childhood, but later he grew up and became fierce. Being the result of an unnatural union between man and wild animal, he had no natural source of food, and needed to devour men to survive. Minos, after taking advice from the oracle in Delphi, asked Daedalus to build him a gigantic labyrinth to house the creature, located near Minos' own palace, in Knossos. The labyrinth. The name given to the Minotaur by his mother was Asterius, and it was by this name that he became known in Crete. Pasiphae took care of the Minotaur during his childhood, but as he grew up, he proved to be fierce and began to feed on with this. Minos decided to imprison him, also as a way of hiding the evidence of his wife's betrayal. Minos ordered Icarus and Daedalus to build a structure so elaborate that it would not only make it impossible for the monster to leave, but would make it difficult for anyone who entered to find their way out, since they built the wooden cow for Pasiphae. Daedalus devised a plan for a vast underground labyrinth of corridors and passages that we now know as the labyrinth. The Minotaur's meal. Subsequently, Minotaur was placed in the labyrinth and was fed from the sacrifices of 14 beautiful young men and virgin girls who were sent by Athens to Crete, as Athenian compensation for the death of Androgeus, son of Minos. These were sent as effects by the city of Athens to Minos approximately, or every 9 years, according to some, in recompense for the death of his son, Androgeus, whom the Athenians killed out of jealousy for beating them. At the Panathenaic Games. The death of the Minotaur, Theseus. Theseus, the founding hero of Athens, was not someone who turned a blind eye to the suffering of his fellow citizens. Then, when the time came for the third pleasure, he offered to go to Crete. Fortunately for him, Ariadne, daughter of Minos, fell in love with him and decided to help him to the best of her knowledge. She begged Daedalus to tell her the secret of the labyrinth, until finally the master craftsman relented. On his advice, Ariadne gave Theseus a romance novel, which the hero used to navigate within the structure, comfortable in the fact that he would always be able to find a way out. Finally, in the center of the labyrinth, Theseus came across the Minotaur and, after a long and exhausting fight, whether with his bare hands or with a club, he finally managed to dominate the cruel monster. There are conflicting versions about how Theseus killed Minotaur. One version says that he killed Minotaur with his own hands. Another version says that he killed the monster with the sword of Aegeus, Theseus' father. A third version says that Minotaur was killed by Theseus with the aid of a mace. Crete and Athens were finally liberated. The Minotaur in classical art. The Minotaur is usually represented in classical art with the body of a man, and the head and tail of a bull. One of the forms assumed by the river god Achilles when courting Deianira is that of a man with a bull's head, according to the play The Trachinias, by Sophocles. From the classical periods until the Renaissance, the Minotaur appears as the subject of several descriptions of the labyrinth. The Roman author Ovid's account of the Minotaur, in Latin, which does not elaborate on which half of the creature was a bull and which was a man, was the most widespread during the Middle Ages, and several illustrations made in the period and later show the Minotaur with a reverse configuration in relation to its classic appearance, a man's head and torso on a bull's body, similar to a centaur. This alternative tradition lasted until the Renaissance, and still figures in modern versions of the myth, such as Steele Savage's illustrations for Edith Hamilton's Mythology, 1942. The vision of the Etruscans. The essentially Athenian view of the Minotaur as Theseus' antagonist reflects literary sources, which are partial to Athenian perspectives. The Etruscans, who considered Ariadne the companion of Dionysus, and not of Theseus, presented a different point of view of the Minotaur, never seen in Greek art, in an Etruscan wine cup made in red figure from the first half of the 4th century BC, Pasiphae rests on tenderly the child Minotaur on your lap. Some interpretations. The fight between Theseus and the Minotaur was frequently depicted in Greek art. A diagram from Knossos displays the labyrinth on one side, and on the other the Minotaur surrounded by a semicircle of small balls, probably representing stars. One of the monster's names was Asterius, star, in ancient Greek. The ruins of Minos' palace at Knossos were discovered, but no labyrinth was found there. The palace's enormous number of rooms, staircases, and corridors has led some archaeologists to suggest that the palace itself was the source of the labyrinth myth, an idea that is generally discredited today. Homer, describing Achilles' shield, commented that the labyrinth would be a venue for Ariadne's ceremonial dances. According to British scholar before Christ Cook, Minos and the Minotaur are just two different forms of the same character, who represents the sun god of the Cretans, who portrayed the sun in the form of a bull. Both Cook and the Scottish anthropologist James Fraser explained Pasiphae's union with a bull as a sacred ceremony, in which the queen of Knossos married a bull-shaped god, in the same way that the tyrant's wife in Athens had been married. With Dionysus. The French archaeologist Edmond Potier, who does not discuss the historical existence of Minos, based on the story of Polaris, considers it likely that in Crete, where a cult of bulls may have existed, along with that of the labyrinths, a form of torture was to lock the victims inside the belly of a red-hot bronze bull. The story of Theseus, the Cretan man of bronze, who left himself ember and embraced foreigners as soon as they set foot on the island, probably had a similar origin. A historical explanation of the myth refers to the period when Crete was the main political and cultural power in the Aegean Sea. As the city of Athens, and probably other continental Greek cities, paid tribute to Crete, it can be assumed that this tribute included young men and women destined for ritual sacrifice. The ceremony was performed by a priest who wore a mask or bull's head, which would then explain the imagery related to the Minotaur. This priest could also be the son of Minos. With mainland Greece free from Cretan rule, the myth of the Minotaur played a role in distancing the incipient religious consciousness of the Hellenic polis from Minoan beliefs. So, what did you think of today's video? Did you already know any of these curiosities about the Minotaur legend? What impressed you most? Let us know your thoughts on this topic, as we would love to respond to your comments below. And if you liked this video and haven't subscribed to our channel yet, subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss any of the intriguing videos we post every week. And if you want to take advantage and learn a little more, be sure to click on one of these videos that we are suggesting for you. Until the next video.